Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm John West, an Acquisitions Editor with SAS Press, and I'd like to welcome you to today's presentation by Jack Shostak. This is the second in our exciting new webinar series featuring SAS Press authors. But before we get started, I'd like to call your attention to the technical support information listed on your screen. If you have problems either viewing or hearing any part of the presentation, you have two options for contacting us. Either call the number shown on the slide or change your seat indicator to yellow. If this is your first time attending a live meeting in Placeware, change your seat indicator by clicking the Controls link on the left side of your screen. Then click on the Seating tab. If you have attended a Placeware meeting before, you should be able to click directly on the Seating tab. Also, Jack will be happy to answer your questions, but please hold all questions until the end. Instructions on how to submit questions will be provided at the end of the presentation. And now on with the webinar. We are very excited and pleased to have Jack Shostak with us today for his presentation titled Statistical Programming in the Pharmaceutical Industry. Jack is the Manager of Statistical Programming at the Duke Clinical Research Institute in Durham, North Carolina. Jack is a longtime SAS user, having used SAS since 1985. He is the author of the recently published book from SAS Press, SAS Programming in the Pharmaceutical Industry. Jack is active in SUGI and PharmaSub. At the end of today's presentation, please stay tuned for information on a special webinar discount on the purchase of Jack's new book. I'll turn things over to Jack now.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Just a joke. Stop laughing. I can't hear you even if you are. I'm going to talk today about statistical programming in the pharmaceutical industry. Nice long title, Moving Forward, Confronting Challenges and Embracing Opportunities. Kind of Jack's thinking on the state of the nation, as it were. In the audience I wanted to talk to you today, and anybody can join, but statisticians or stat programmers in the pharmaceutical industry are the folks I was thinking about. And that assumes some familiarity with the work that we do, the regulations that govern our work, and the sea of acronyms that we swim in. So I may use some acronyms at times that if you don't know, Google them later. Now, the typical clinical trial stat analysis effort looks something like this. You've got a statistical analysis plan, which is based on your protocol. And that's written up, and that leads to various specifications for analysis data structures, tables, listings, graphs, you name it, all the things that have to be done for clinical reporting. Then the programming and validation happens, and you get statistical results. It's a fairly linear process where each step drives the next. Oops. I want to talk about some of the characteristics of this process. Most pharmaceutical research organizations rely on some kind of procedural control to compensate for a lack of complete computer systems control. Manual processes tend to be common, and organizations have made some progress in getting some of the computer systems that they need, but few have a comprehensive and complete regulatory compliance system for statistical analysis. And characteristics continued. Some of the manual processes that we may go through are quality control verification of statistical results, report assembly, versioning, taking snapshots, archiving what we've done, generating specifications themselves, standards result generation, data transformations, data conversions, that kind of thing. And there's probably a host of other things I don't have listed up here. But again, most organizations have automated some parts of this, just maybe not everything. So this being the current state of things, what is it we need? Where do we need to go? So how do we go from this, which the abacus is a bit of an extreme analogy, to this, which is a clip art slap happy analogy, basically an enlightened futuristic nirvana of statistical reporting. So how do we get there? And I would say what we need is a development environment, or as others have said, a statistical computing environment. We need a comprehensive 21 CRF 21 Part 11 compliant statistical computing platform that provides the tools that we need to overcome many of these manual processes. And others have actually written about this type of environment before. A good reference is Alan Hopkins' paper that he presented at the DIA, and the URLs here for you folks. We need an environment that pulls all the little disparate pieces of what we do together in one place. Now, this is Jack's wish list for a statistical computing environment. There may be a few things I've forgotten on here, and there may be a few things on here that aren't out there to be purchased right now. But first and foremost, I would like a 21 CFR 11 compliant environment. Not only one for us to work within, but one that was developed with 21 CFR 11 in mind. So developed and maintaining that kind of environment. Like an environment that controls and creates an audit trail for all the objects. So specifications, programs, logs, results of the programs, that kind of thing. All the little pieces, documents or files, if you will, the things we deal with. Version control would be good for statistical programs. Things like, for those that use version control software, check in, check out, difference between versions, that kind of thing. Something to make sure your code is what you think it is. Another feature would be nice would be object dependency control. For those that are familiar with makefiles, this kind of thing I'm thinking about here. So for instance, if you have a program that changes and down the road an analysis is dependent on that program, the analysis might automatically update for you. So object dependency, if something upstream changes, the things downstream get changed too. Another feature would be good would be scripting ability, job scheduling capacity. So say I wanted to go and generate a DSMB, and the requirement to do that would be a pile of analysis data sets, tables, listings, graphs, that kind of thing. I could just push a button and it would go do it. Finally, on this page, development, test, and production work environments with synchronization between each, so you can promote from one level to the next. And more things for the wish list. Multi-level security would be good. We often run into situations where we need to have some folks being able to see treatment results, some folks not. What we're talking about here is kind of blinding and unblinding environments. And it would be nice to have that. You know, you could specify that a user based on a certain profile could or could not see treatment results at a fairly high level. Another feature would be good would be snapshot ability. So you could capture your production workspace at any given point in time. And this is all about reproducible results. 6 months ago when you produced that DSMB, can you go back to it and say exactly what you did? And finally, it would be nice to have a whole pile of tie-ins. So SAS, obviously, things like maybe S+, R, SPSS, other statistical package tie-ins. Tie-in to desktop publishing document management systems for report production. Common clinical data management system tie-ins to link in with the CDMS metadata and databases. And ETL tools, extract, transform, load, and other analysis assisting tools would be good, like data visualization. Now, is all this too much to ask for? Perhaps, but I do know SAS Drug Development and others are already working in this space for us now and providing some solutions. And what's stimulating this kind of innovation, and why is this happening? One thing right off the bat, I was looking at these slides the other day, something that's in the popular media quite a bit right now is drug safety. There isn't the time to go through dozens of final study reports and paste things to the wall at the FDA and figure out all of the little disparate pieces and how they interact. Those things have to be brought together to improve drug safety. There's a great pressure now on reducing drug development costs. The pharmaceutical companies are feeling that. And that's going to continue to drive innovation as time-saving tools. A lot of organizations have matured. All the industry statistical centers operating under standard operating procedures, and most are ready to adapt more mature tool sets. And most organizations have standard reporting tools by now and can be loaded into, given a statistical computing environment, they could take their already validated tools and load them in. And now, standards development progress is kind of a big thing stimulating innovation as well. standards movement is going to drive innovation quite a bit. And standards allow us, or allow folks, to build applications that are built around those standards. So standard data, standard tools to work with that data. Imagine, if you would, how good an MP3 player would be if there wasn't the MP3 format, or CDs or DVDs for that matter. Pharmaceutical industry has kind of been in that boat. We haven't had data standards. So my company would refer to variables different than another company, and then you've got all this data mapping and transformation from company to company. It's been kind of a problem. The ACRO is out there working on standard CRFs, and there are the CDISC models, which I want to talk about here. And there's 3 of them I kind of want to highlight. There's more than these 3. There's actually quite a few. If you go out to cdisc.org, you'll find 7 or 8 different teams working on things. But the 3 I am intimately interested in are the SDTM, which is Submission Data Tabulation Model. It gives us all a common data standard for exchanging clinical trials data. The ATOM model gives us a set of standards for statistical analysis and value-added data sets. And the ODM gives us kind of an open XML wrapper where we can wrap all these other data models up and send them along to our friends down the road. And that would include the SDTM, and ATOM can be formatted in the ODM. One other group I want to talk about is Protocol Representation Group. And the exciting thing about this group is what their goal really is to try to turn the data that's in the protocol, which is historically this big, verbose, long written document, into a data stream. And once you've done that, you can do some fairly interesting things. You could take that data, that metadata out of the protocol, and you could use it to drive statistical analysis plan templates, perhaps, CDMS design, and perhaps eventually drive standard statistical reporting templates. So if we could get the metadata out of the protocol, we could use it in the downstream systems. And there's folks working on that now. Kind of the next step for down the road, there are others working on standard open nomenclature to describe not just the data, but the action behind what we do, the verb, if you will. The data transformations that we do, the statistical analyses that we do. There are folks working on modeling that right now. So those are a number of opportunities and things driving the industry towards innovation, but what are some of the challenges we're dealing with? Well, the standards are kind of young, and the software that works with those standards is kind of young as well. So, and it makes some sense if the standards are fairly young and maturing and adapting, and you're an applications provider, you're going to be a little bit hesitant until that standard's been around for a while. So, of no fault to the industry, the software industry, the data standards that we have are a bit ahead of the software needing to support them. That makes sense, but that's kind of the situation we're in right now. We have a number of data standards flying around and not a whole lot of software that supports it. And then finally on this page, institutional change is always hard, and inertia is a powerful force. Why change, people ask, and if it isn't broke, why fix it? So there's that mentality you kind of have to deal with. And a final challenge I wanted to throw in here is that we need to make sure that standards or models do not damage the science of what we're trying to do. We need to not force square pegs in round holes. All of us have used tools, like a Phillips head screwdriver is great for Phillips head screws, but it's not great for flathead screws. And try as you might, you're not going to get much ground. And so what I do want to say is this is not the battle cry of a traditionalist mindset that I'm saying. And I want to go into what I mean by that. I consider this area of innovation kind of dictated by 2 camps. One is the traditionalists, or folks that have traditionally done clinical trials statistical analysis. They might argue that clinical trials analysis is complex business, and it can't and or shouldn't fully be automated. Fine, that's one viewpoint. And then, on the other hand, you have your visionaries. And they see a world where you have perhaps a clinical trial, and the nurse is sitting next to the bed with a PDA in her hand, and she types in a couple of values, and poof, within seconds at the statistical analysis center, you have your p-value. You're off and running. So seconds from data entry to results. Now, my opinion is that realities can be somewhere between these two valuable viewpoints, and I think they are valuable viewpoints. For the visionaries, these industry standards and the tools that work with them will greatly increase the efficiency of what we do. They'll help us do statistical analyses of trials faster and better. For the traditionalists, sound scientific thought will always need to be in control. This is not, clinical trials work tends to be a tad dirty. And this is not the kind of stuff, at the end of the day, that's going to be 100% mechanistic. Now, what we need are the traditionalists and the visionaries to work with each other and understand each other's viewpoint, and I believe that the final viewpoint is going to be one that's efficient while still allowing for proper scientific flexibility. Because I think if we go to either extreme, we're not going to end up with the right solution. What can you do? What can you do to prepare? I would start by watching the standards community and the applications providers and see what they're putting out there. What can you take from them and leverage for your organization? Secondly, make sure your business processes are clean and efficient. It's going to make transition to any new software or environment that much easier. As the application providers put out statistical computing environments, if your processes, your business processes are fairly tight and well-defined, you can just map them over into a new environment without much pain. And then, and this is something I firmly believe, surface as much metadata from your analysis processing as you can. So try to get the hard coding mentality out of your programming and specifications and make your analysis processes metadata driven. So instead of specification documents locked up in, maybe Word files or PDF files, make them data streams. They can drive programs. You're seeing this, you saw this for a bit within CDISC. I mean, CDISC came out with all these data standards, and then folks were looking at define.pdf. And you realized, well, wait, all that valuable information is locked up in the PDF file. So now you have a define.xml. It's machine readable. And once it's machine readable, you can do a lot of stuff. So things like lookup tables here, metadata tables, that's what you need to be looking forward to. What else can you do to prepare? Well, get you and your organization involved. There are many standards groups out there, CDISC included, that make the progress they make because of folks like you. And there's CDISC, there's HL7, there's the folks at the Bridge Project doing a lot of really innovative, neat stuff. There's the ACRO who's been working on standardized CRF. So if you've got an interest, there are folks out there willing to take your help. Prepare for the future of trials, analysis and reporting by helping to define it. Don't just sit back and wait and see what happens. Things aren't going to happen that way. We all basically have the same challenges. We're all doing the same type of work. And I think by working together, we will make this work much more efficient and better. And that's about all I have. I'm going to turn it over to John. He's going to say a few words. If you want to reach me after today, here's my email address. You can reach me there.
Great. Thanks, Jack. It's now time to open the Q&A portion of the webinar. To submit a question, open the controls link on the left side of your screen and then click the presentation tab. From there, you can type a question to Jack. Note that you can only submit one question at a time. And while you're submitting questions, I'd like to remind you about additional upcoming webinars. The third webinar in our spring series will be presented by Kirk Laffler on Thursday, April 20th, and the fourth and final webinar in the series will be presented by Alex Dimitrienko on Thursday, May 11th. For registration information, please visit our website at support.sas.com/SASPress. And as we mentioned earlier, we would now like to offer you a special 20% webinar discount on Jack's new book. Please call the 1-800 number shown on your screen. Note that this discount applies to U.S. and Canadian call-in orders only. The discount is offered from March 21st through March 28th. Jack, have you got any questions yet?
I have not. Not a one. So nobody has any questions. Come on. Don't be shy. Wow.
And if anyone has problems submitting questions, please call the the number on the screen.
I was expecting a lively debate, too. Yeah, lunchtime on the East Coast, so.
Yeah, true.
Here we go. Stephen has a question, how can we get your PowerPoint file? So this will be, well, John, do you want to handle that?
Sure, just email us at saspress@sas.com, and we'll be glad to send you the presentation.
And this will be on the web too. It'll be archived on the web as well.
Right.
And if I'll tell you what, if you email me as well, I'd be happy to send you the slide deck for the presentation.
And it'll be about 2 weeks before the presentation is archived on our website.
Okay.
On the SAS Press website. Other questions?
I got a couple here.
Okay.
They're kind of similar. One is from Diane, and she's saying, what advice do you have for folks who want to get into pharma work? I get that a lot. Whenever we do hiring, I get that quite a bit. You see, in this industry, it's interesting. Sometimes I'll get quite a few resumes from folks that maybe came out of telecom or, say, the dot-com bust of years ago, and they don't have a lot of experience in this industry. The two big things you look for are SAS knowledge is surely nice because that's the majority of what we do is SAS programming. And secondly, some knowledge of the pharma industry. Biology background, life sciences background is a good thing to have. Degrees in statistics surely don't hurt. And experience with SAS. There are very few actual programs for training this kind of employee. There is a school, University of Philadelphia, I believe, has a school of certificate for SAS programming in the pharmaceutical industry. But there's very little not on-the-job training for this kind of stuff. And Zhao had a question of, I'm working with Medicare data. How can I migrate to work with clinical trials data? Interesting question. Well, one, you're a SAS programmer working with Medicare data. My hunch is it's probably dirty too. So that's the good news for you. You've already got SAS and you've already worked with dirty kind of clinical data. So now it's just a translation into and getting your foot through the door to, say, a CRO or a pharmaceutical company where you can leverage your technical skills and some of your medical knowledge. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Fang has a question. Can you elaborate on the extent of version control that is fit for purpose? Version control is fantastic, and if you don't use it, you really ought to be. Way back in the day, before folks like me or us use version control software, you might work in a group environment and go home for the day and come back the next day, and oh my gosh, your program's not what it was. It has changed. Those days are gone with version control. If your program changed, you know who did it, you know why they did it. Think of version control as just a library function. You check programs out, you modify them, you check them in, all the changes are audited and tracked. Just fabulous stuff. And there are a number of free solutions for version control that you can look into, both for Windows and other operating systems. Let's see. I'm getting pummeled with questions now, so thank you. Let's see. Do you have any, Janie had a question. Do you have any suggestions for staying on top of the standards process other than monitoring the CDISC website? Are there any newsletters or listservs you suggest subscribing to? I think you kind of nailed one. Monitor the cdisc.org website. Everything goes out there, and it changes almost daily, or at least it did for a while. It's kind of slowed down now. Go to conferences. Pharmaceutical is going to be rife with SAS/CDISC papers this year, I think. Looking at the papers to be presented, there's quite a few in that avenue this year. And that way you can see what other folks are doing. But a lot of folks are using the models now, and I can tell you that from a decent experience with it. Brett's asking me what version control software I'm using. Aha! That would be RCS. I'll just leave it at that. Oh, okay, this is a good question. I get this sometimes. Teresa's got a question. Do you have a suggestion for someone in data management wanting to move into the programming arena? Yes, actually, that's a fantastic career path, I think, because being in data management, you know a lot about the data itself. You're aware and you're fluent in the sea of acronyms, CRFs, ECRFs, and you know what a ConMed is, and you know what an AE is, and just learning all the acronyms is part of the problem. So get some technical skills. Knowing SQL is a good thing. Knowing SAS is great. Get some SQL skills and then network. Find some friends, either in your organization or go to a conference, get to meet people. I can tell you from my experience, we're always looking for good, eager, motivated, smart people. And I personally have hired folks out of data management before. So that would be my recommendation. You know, improve your SAS hacks and network. Let's see. Fang's got an interesting and controversial question I'll throw out there to everybody. What about using non-SAS tool for clinical reporting? Well, there's nothing that says you have to use SAS for clinical trials reporting. And the FDA's stand on software is they don't explicitly endorse any software, and all that's true. However, 98% of the stat departments in this industry are SAS-centric, and we use SAS. The reviewers are fluent in SAS. Statisticians in the industry are fluent in SAS. So it is really kind of the market leader. There is no rule, quote unquote, that says you have to use SAS, though. You can use other tools. It's just SAS has been basically the market leader and continues to be so in this arena. Jay has a comment. Says, really like your book. Any other books in this arena that you'd like to recommend? Ooh, that's a tough one. There aren't, I forget. Glenn Walker's got a really good stats book. If you're a stat programmer and you want to know more about the statistics, he's got a book called, gosh, I forget, it's like Clinical Statistics in the Pharmaceutical Industry or something like that. It's out there by SAS Press. I would just go to the SAS Press website, type in pharmaceutical, and see what comes out. There's a number of books out there.
Jack, is that Common Statistical Methods for Clinical Research?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I knew I'd completely mangled the title.
And users can find it on our website.
Yeah, I would go to the website. There's a number of books out there. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one too. Is there any specific process to be followed from Sumesh? Specific process to be followed to convert clinical trials data sets to the SDTM? Well, now isn't that just the magic? I wish there were. The real problem that we have right now is that, you know, even with the market-leading CDMSs down to your mom-and-pop EDC vendors, there is no magic bullet for converting to the SDTM. You've got all your disparate data management, the clinical data management software systems, and then you've got to realize not only are all those systems disparate, but you've got the SDTM, which is not ironclad. There is squishiness to it. There are things to be decided as you go. So there are things you can do to make it easier using ETL tools or building standard processes around your transformations. But there's no specific process to be followed. But I can guarantee you there's probably a ton of consultants out there right now that would be willing to help you out. Let's see, what else do we have here? What have I dodged? There's only one left that I've dodged. I think I've got the rest of them. What's the key difference between QC and QA? It depends who you ask. You know, that's like the difference between, what's the key difference between validation and verification. And so even within the FDA documentation, you can get subtly different flavors of that. I tend to think of QA as quality assurance and QC as quality control. You could call those the same things. I don't know if there's a big difference there between validation and verification. I consider validation to be the large umbrella that covers, at the end of the day, how do you know it was right? So everything from the specification documentations down to your validation plan and what you did, all that's validation. Verification is simply proving that something is what it's supposed to be. But the validation term tends to be a more global umbrella term. Does anybody have anything else, question-wise? Did I not answer any questions? Or unless I missed something. If I missed something, shoot it to me again.
Any other questions today?
Don't see any more.
Is that it, Jack?
Oh, here's one.
Okay.
Sunil. What standards are there, if any, for program validation? You know, it's interesting you mentioned this. This is a hot topic, and if you look at my book, you'll see one that I write that somebody could write a whole other book on this. And Carol Matthews and Brian Schilling are working on a programming validation book for this industry right now through SAS Press. But there are no standards for that. My advice to you would be to start with sound software development processing, or go with the traditional systems development lifecycle approach. That tends not to work for some of the things that we do. And, you know, I don't know, I think you need to take the SDLC and then kind of mix it in with a risk-based approach for what you're doing. All of our stuff, all the work that we do, all the programming we do, definitely falls under CRF 21 Part 11. It all needs to be validated. And I do know there's a number of consultants out there who would be more than happy to tell you precisely what's required. But I think if you were to rope down any two pharma companies or any two CROs that were all doing this stuff, but not two of us are doing exactly the same thing. We're all doing slightly different flavors of the same thing. So I hope that helped. Let's see. Brett has a question. What's your experience using ETL Studio for CDISC mapping? Pros and cons. You know, Brett, I wish you could take the floor, because frankly, I don't use ETL Studio for CDISC mapping right now. We're using some customized tools to do our mapping. And so I can't speak to that, actually. Let's see what else. Looking like that's about it.
If attendees want to email you directly, they can do that, of course.
Absolutely.
Right. Jack, if you see no additional questions, we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar for today. Thanks, Jack.
Certainly. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. I appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, just shoot me a mail. Be happy to respond.
Right. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending today. We really appreciate your participation. Please email us at saspress@sas.com with any feedback or suggestions. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you.